Didn't do it.
That's
It's
so
probably
weird.
because it did it because I started it
Okay.
and then stopped it. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 14. Tranquility. Janaka uvacha prakritya shunyachitto yaha pramada bhavan nitrito bodhita iva kshina sansarano hisaha. Janaka said, "He indeed has his recollections of worldly life extinguished, who becomes void-minded spontaneously, who thinks of sense objects only by chance, and who is, as it were, awake, though physically asleep."
Yes. So he's riffing a bit on this idea that comes in second chapter of Gita, where Krishna says to the yogi of steady wisdom, what is day to him is night to others, and what is day to others is night to him. So he's asleep, as it were, to this world. It doesn't mean he's asleep. It means the concern for the world is gone. And by void-minded doesn't mean no thought. Now, she may go into samadhi, that's fine, another mind state. But what is the mind that is problematic? Only three ideas. Jiva bhavana, I think I'm a person. Now, let's talk a little bit about what is ahankriti, the ego sense. Ahankriti is a function in the subtle intellect. Shankara places it in the vijnana maya kosha, the subtlest part of the intellect. And what it is, it's the faculty that coordinates our experience on all levels and makes it appear like it's happening to one person. For example, do you know whether I had breakfast this morning? Do you know that you had breakfast this morning? Have I been outside to walk around this morning? Have you been outside to walk around this morning? So there's this function in the subtle intellect that takes sense perceptions, feelings, thoughts, memories, etc., and makes it all happen to one apparent individual entity. Just like if I cut my finger, my thumb doesn't go bad finger, bad finger, bad finger. I go, because as an ego, I pervade my whole body. If you cut your finger, I can feel bad about it. But there's a difference. Is this making sense?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when I think that ahankriti is me. Instead of understanding that it's a function in the subtle intellect. This is why I do not like to use the term jiva or jivatma. Jiva means the individual, the entity. Jivatma, the individual self, contrasted with the supreme self. I prefer to use Gaudapada's language, which is jiva bhavana. Bhavana means an attitude or a feeling. clearest way to illustrate it is it happens in the dream state. In the dream state, the Vikshepa Shakti of the mind projects a dream body. And in that dream body, I have a locus of perception. I peep out through that dream body at the dream world. And there is a Hankriti in the dream. I am identified as the dream body. But upon awakening, I see, no, I wasn't that person. That was just something my mind created in order to transact business in the dream state. Do you see that? Jiva Bhavana. That's the first element of the mind. Otherness. Second thought. The phenomenal world is out there and other than me. And then what does the mind do? The mind then engages in anyonya adhyasa. Did we talk about mutual superimposition last week?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So I superimpose upon myself the qualities of the not self, and then I superimpose upon the mind's projection, or the Lord's projection of the phenomenal world. Otherness. Out there is Sat, existence, separate from me. Over there is sentience, separate from me. Most devastating. Over there is Ananda. I mean the Ananda, it's over there. And then the third element, Kartavya. Usually translated as obligatory action. But what it means is I have to struggle. I have work to do. I have to go from point A to point B in order to be happy. I either need to change the world or I need to change me. Though that triangle, those three ideas, that is the mind. That is samsara. That is the karma chakra. That is the fruit of my ignorance. That is the problem. So when we talk about voidness, does it mean I'm stupefied? It means I see, I penetrate through the fundamental unreality of those three ideas. Now, those of us who've been tuning into Yoga Vasishta, we're actually doing the story of Dashura right now. But before that, we had the story of Dhamma and others. Anybody remember that? You've been tuning into it, haven't you, Fang?
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember the story of Dhamma and others, there was the king of the demons. There have been a bunch of kings of the demons, but this was Shambhara. And of course, there's the constant war in heaven. The Devas against the Asuras. So Shambhara creates three super demons called Dhamma, etc., who didn't have egos. They go into battle with the Devas. They were kicking butt, wiping out the Devas. They go off to Brahma, the creator. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? This was Brahma's strategy. Just really fascinating. Engage those demons in battle and feign defeat and run away. Oh, you've conquered us. Oh, you conquered us. Run away. What happened to the demons?
They develop egos.
Yes. And then what happens after they develop ego? Actually, the word they use is pride, but you got it right, same thing. Then what happens after that?
They get defeated.
But before that, another mind state arises. Fear. Pride, look at us. We just conquered the devas. We kicked butt. And once they develop the ego, the pride, the fear, the devas could conquer them. So Shabbat's all right. I'll show you. So he creates 3 more, also without ego. Terminator 2.0. What else did he create in them?
Knowledge of the Vedanta.
Shrotriyam and Viveka. So they had knowledge of the scriptures and discrimination, so that they had the tools to keep ego identification from arising. They could not be defeated. Vishnu had to come down, kill him, and of course they were liberated. So this voidness of mind, this elimination of those 3 ideas, you have to make sure you are able to keep them from arising again. Because of your understanding, listen carefully, of the unreality of the mind. This is what is meant by the voidness of mind. So, for example, if you had the strange thought, oh, I'm an elephant, what would you think if that thought arose in your mind?
It's ridiculous.
What about the thought is, I'll never get a boyfriend? Doesn't seem ridiculous, does it? It's ridiculous. I'll never figure out what I'm supposed to do in my life. It's just as ridiculous as the thought, oh, I'm an elephant. What do? What do the scriptures tell us to do? Stop. Introvert your attention. Notice the knower. You see a good person, a bad person, a successful person, a failure, or an elephant in there? What do you see? Shrotriyam Vivekacha. Understanding of the process and the capacity to discriminate. Oh, that's a stupid idea. There's nothing there. Now, when we are asleep, that becomes obvious. It's not like we have to go through a process anymore. So, any other questions about this idea of what voidness of mind Next one.
Kva dhanani, kva mitrani, kva me vishayadasya, kva shastram, kva cha vijnanam, yada me galita spriha. When once the desires have melted away, where are my riches? Where are my friends? Where are the thieves in the form of sense objects? Nay, where are the scriptures and knowledge itself?
So now in the highest wisdom, when we see the world for what it is, a light show. We were talking before class a bit about the etymology of the word Maya. The root is ma, which means not. That which is comprised of not. But other words that occur, who can tell me what a Mayavi is?
A magician or
A
illusionist.
magician, an illusionist. Yes. So the Lord is the great Mayavi, Mahamayava. Just a stage show. You go to Las Vegas and you watch the magician saw the lady in half in the box. Does she really get sawn in half? Blood starts spurting out of the box, maybe, but that's not what happens. I don't know how they do it. But it's the same with this world. And listen carefully. Just moving objects around is not what's going to make me happy. So yesterday, again, when we were going through Vivekachudamani, Shankara was talking about the objects of the senses do not inherently have happiness. It is the self that is revealed through. In the beginning, we talk about, maybe you need to avoid objects of desire from a distance, to turn the volume level down on that. But as we mature in our practice, the thing for us to understand is there's no such thing as worldly enjoyment. It does not exist. Mind, under the throes of rajas, the shape of Shakti, that hurts. The mind ceases its agitating or projecting power. Oh, God. Jim, why are you hitting yourself on the head with a hammer? Oh, because it feels so good when I stop. I want a new car. I want a different house. I want a boyfriend. I want a girlfriend. I want my husband to do this. I want my children to do that. I want. Then when they finally behave, that's all that's going on. But I get all caught up in the world and I project onto the not self the qualities of the self. when the magician saws the lady in half, boy, does it look real. Someone delivers what I want. It sure seems like the happiness is in that. We don't realize we run around in the world with a constant, unexamined background of discontent. Restlessness. I was talking with a friend, and they have a problem with addiction, and they were trying to figure out, well, why do I do this? Why do I go gamble? Why do I just want to do some crystal meth? And what they said was so interesting. Well, Jim, I just want some release. Question is, release from what? What's that person's underlying constant mind state? Discontent. Discontent. That's you and me. That's you and me. But Shankara says, don't embrace a rotting corpse, thinking it's a beautiful bride, or we could say, gorgeous husband. Don't drink the poison of attachment, thinking it's going to quench your thirst. Oh, look at the fire, it's hungry. I think I'll feed it by just pouring more fuel on it. Such is the power of Maya. How many times have I heard this? I don't see what's really going. When I do, this is the voidness of mind. This is the mind finally freed from the tyranny of compulsion, of craving. I had a friend, I still have a friend, but he introduced me to a term for those who study psychology called self-soothing. Can you define this for us, Aditi?
Basically using objects or situations to bring relief to your painful emotions, to kind of mask them.
Is it a negative thing for the psychologists?
It depends how it's done, like what's used to do it.
Yoga would say that's what we're doing all the time. I have low-level agitation, restlessness, discontent, and it's painful. And so I self-soothe. I want to arrange the world in a way, so at least temporarily, it doesn't hurt so bad. And yoga says, we're fooling ourselves. What you seek is who you are. One of my favorite sayings of the Catholic saint, St. Augustine, thou hast made us for thyself, O Lord. And our heart is restless until it finds its rest in thee. Just think of the self rather than the Lord. Same thing. Don't believe me. You prove it every night. If you're squirmy, restless, etc., don't we long for the respite of sleep? Isn't that our experience? Yes?
Yes.
What object is causing the bliss of sleep?
Nothing.
It is the absence of the jonesing mind. Problem is, we're wrapped up in pure ignorance. But it proves to us that it's the mind in its vikshepa shakti. It's the mind in the rajasic state. That's where our suffering is. And fixing it, self-soothing, is at best a temporary respite. And it becomes problematic if we start to develop addictive relationships with a particular object of the senses. So again, being free from the tyranny of that vikshepa shakti, that projecting power. What the person of wisdom. Any thoughts on this? How many times do we hear it? How many times we go out there and world's not behaving. Next verse.
Vikyate sakshi purushe paramatmani cheshware nairashye panthamokshe cha na chinta muktaye mama. As I have realized the Supreme Self, who is the witness and the Lord, the Purusha, and have become indifferent to both bondage and liberation, I now feel no anxiety for my emancipation.
Yes. So this is a very subtle and important verse. So let's peel it apart. Read the first part of it again.
As I have realized the Supreme Self, who is the witness and the Lord.
So the self is not only the knower of the field in all fields, every mind state, waking, dream, and deep sleep, the illuminator of the three gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva, the knower of the past, present, and future, but is also the Lord, meaning the controller of it all. One of the fruits of knowledge is you see the illusion of an individual doer. So again, in Yoga Vasishta, we had the teaching, take on the viewpoint, I do nothing. Just watch the movie go by. Or, but this scripture's echoing, I do everything. There's a very famous Zen koan. From where you are sitting, move the distant boat across the water. This is not about having psychic powers. That which is moving the boat across the water, that which is moving traffic up and down Grand Avenue, is what reached out and picked up your water bottle glass. It's making your eyelids go up and down. I do everything. And the yogi then begins to penetrate into what Jung called the synchronicity. It's all connected. Omaji would say it's a cosmos, not a chaos. Next idea.
And have become indifferent to both bondage and liberation.
So when we start off and we're studying the qualifications of a fit student, viveka, discrimination, vairagya, dispassion, shamari guna, the quality of shama, etc. And the fourth, mumukshutva. We sublimate all our other desires to the desire for liberation. But this is the stick that's used to stir the funeral pyre, to cremate the corpse of the ego. But in the end, you toss the stick on. So another synchronicity then. Fang had a question before class. Ashtavakra Gita has answered. Here's the self, here's the ego. It thinks, I want to be realized. Aha, I'm there. Here's the self, here's the ego. I want to be realized. Tapas. So we quit being concerned about bondage and liberation. Who is it who's all worked up and wrapped up with it? That unreal being. True story. Oh, maybe 6-8 years ago, I'd gone to the gym. I was on my way home, had my headphones on. Jim, this is Alan. Old boyfriend of mine, who was a student at one point, was in Hawaii. Are you enlightened? Let me sit down and I'll answer your question. I said to him, Alan, I've quit asking the question. Now, if you were to ask me if I have any doubts about my essential nature, Who is it who's concerned about bondage and liberation? Now listen very carefully. We do not give up the mumukshu, the seeker after liberation, until you are established, until you no longer have doubts about who you are. There are only two kinds of people in the world. Those who think they're a person, including those who run around thinking I'm an enlightened person, or maybe I'm not enlightened, or maybe there's more enlightenment for me to get, or am I there yet? All of that is foolishness. Then there are those who know no personal sense of self. The four Mahavakyas, first one, Prajnanam Brahma, Brahman is consciousness. Second one, I am Atma Brahma, this self is Brahman. Third one, Tattvamasi, that thou art. The fourth one, does it say Aham Mahatma? Aham Muni? Aham Paramahamsa Yogi? No. Aham Brahmasmi. No, not a person. Never was. It's an illusion. I'm Brahman. Does Brahman ever get deluded? Very subtle but important points. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Antarvikalpashunyasya bahi swachandachariणः भ्रान्तास्येव दशास्तास्तास्तास्तादृशा एव जानते. The different conditions of a wise man who, devoid of any thoughts within, outwardly roams about at his own pleasure like a deluded man, can only be understood by those like him.
So one woman of knowledge can recognize another. You cannot tell necessarily if you're in ignorance by looking at the behavior. It is pointless. But I have to have faith in someone in order to proceed. That is correct. You need to have a good bullshit detector. Trust your intuition. Go where you're fed. Some of us have more than one teacher in life. Others of us are spiritually monogamous. But the guru is a temporary psychological device. The external guru. And it's an externalization of wisdom. So it's pointless to get wrapped up in the mind states of other people. Swamiji used to say, if you cannot see who I am, then treat me as a mouthpiece of the scriptures. Do not get involved with my personality. And many people would. Oh, Swamiji. Trying to get his attention, trying to get his approval. Oh, Swamiji, I did blah, 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 blah. Hoping he'd go, oh, you're so good. Any of us were running some sort of an ego trip. Whack! It smack us down. Not physically. More like. What is the mark of a true teacher? Talked about this earlier. When you're working with that teacher, are you turned back and are you having an experience and understanding of who you are? That's the Guru's job. Not to entertain you. You get you high. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Chapter 15. Brahman, the absolute reality. Ashtavakra vacha yatha tathopadeshena pritartha sattva buddhiman ajivam api jityasu parastatra vimuhyati. Ashtavakra said, a person of pure intelligence realizes the self even by instruction casually imparted. A man of impure intellect is confused in trying to realize the self, even after inquiring throughout his life.
So, success in spiritual endeavors is entirely due to the degree of the qualifications of the student. That's what Shankar says. So if you are having trouble, go back to Viveka Chudamani, revisit the qualifications of the fit student. It's like taking your car into the shop if it's running rough. And now they just hook stuff up and to diagnose it, isn't that what they do? Old-timey days, you know, the mechanics had good ear to hear what might be wrong and stuff like that. For a tune-up, that's what we want to do. How's your discrimination? You're getting a little sloppy in your dispassion. Are you endeavoring to practice this intense introversion? Shama Dhamma Viparita. How's your titiksha? You getting caught up in resentment, hurt feelings, self-pity? Are you wasting your time trying to figure things out? Or are you deep in your samadhi, that tranquility, that peaceful state of mind, when it rests in steady contemplation of the goal, and is not to be obtained or achieved through oscillation of the mind. This one, this doesn't mean this doesn't mean that. Pointless. Of course, your shraddha, your faith, keep on. If you have been practicing this stuff, then even a casual hearing of the truth, it's yourself. Oh, okay. If, on the other hand, the mind is gross, it's still caught up in the world with likes and dislikes, if it's still obsessed with how am I doing, am I okay, what do they think of me, Lord Shiva himself, we have no lack of the information. People say, oh, Jim, you ought to write a book. What in God's name for? You have no lack of information on what to do. Lack is the yoga balam to do it. Oh, I went to hear Lazarus be channeled. Like you believe someone without a body more than you believe someone with a body. If the entity that's being channeled is telling you truth, there are hundreds and hundreds of scriptures in the most beautiful poetry telling us the same damn thing. There's no lack of information. What we lack is yoga balam, the strength of yoga to do what's suggested. So, if I feel stuck, it's not because I have the wrong teacher. It's not because I'm in the wrong house. It's not because my schedule is this, that, or the other thing. And make sure you don't focus on ancillary things. Oh, maybe I need to just go from vegetarian to vegan. That'll fix it. Or I'm meditating an hour a day, maybe 4 hours a day will fix it. Go back to the qualifications of the first student. Any thoughts on this? In the end, I love the way Patanjali frames it in the Yoga Sutra. Abhyasa vairagyacha. Practice and renunciation. Dispassion. Started on the second chapter of Yoga Sutra. I can remember the first. Did I share this with you last week? The first sutra of the second chapter? Yes, no?
No.
I don't remember. Tapas, swadhyaya, swadhyayeshwara pranidhana kriya yoga. Is that right, Scott?
I don't know the Sanskrit, but I think so.
Okay. Tapas, our austerities, our practices, primarily Vairagya. Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya has layers of meaning. The surface meaning is our own study of the scripture. We review it after we've gone through it with a teacher. But a deeper meaning is being able to apply the scripture to our lives. Also means this self-knowledge with a small s, being aware of our kleshas, our afflictions, our doshas, our defects. Oh, there's where my attachments are. There's where my identifications are. Endeavoring to work on. Ishvara pranidhana, absolute surrender. This is Kriya Yoga. What's the difference between karma and kriya? They both mean action. Karma is a completed action. Kriya is an action in process. Isn't that an interesting distinction? Fang walked here from the BART station. Karma. Fang is sitting on my couch. Kriya. See the distinction? So yoga is not something we finish. There is karma yoga. How to deal with our actions. But Kriya Yoga is yoga in action. Nice format. All right, next verse.
Moksho Vishaya Vairasyam Bandho Vishayiko Rasaha Etavadeva Vijnanam Yatechasai Tatha Guru. Distaste for sense objects is liberation. Passion for sense objects is bondage. Such indeed is knowledge. Now do as you please.
Yes. So in the beginning, distaste. I want to nuance that. We do not want to be afraid of the world. Now, in the beginning, Shankara will say the person who is indiscriminate in their attitude relationship with the world, thinking it's all Maya, it all doesn't matter, is like a person who mistakes a snake for a rope. I reversed it. Notice? I think it's a harmless rope. In fact, it's a poisonous snake. So I would nuance what he's saying. Take a neutral posture. More importantly, watch your mind. If I'm disturbed, if I'm upset, if I'm angry, if I'm sad, ego will tell you the world isn't behaving. Yoga says, Mudha, you're a fool. You're caught wanting. It's axiomatic. If I am disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one. That's the problem. So, don't fool ourselves. Doesn't mean we're going to be able to stop the tyranny of wanting right away. But see it for what it is. And see how repetitive and boring it is. Who got upset this week about something? Tell me it's the first time you felt this. Did you get upset about something new? Did you? Tell me the truth. Yes? No? No. Yeah. Aren't you tired of it?
Yes.
It's so boring. It's so boring and repetitive. What does my mind say? Play whack-a-mole with the world. And own your ananda. You mean to tell me that ice cream, beautiful music, my husband or wife behaving, good nookie, are all the same? Well, they sure don't seem the same. But watch your mind. Now, the happiness, the sukham, will vary in intensity and duration. But what it does to my mind is the same. But because of the magician, Ishvara, Mahamayavi, I don't see what's happening. When the mind is under the influence of raga, wanting, it's painful, it's uncomfortable. That's all there is to my suffering. When that ceases, when I get what I want, I get a taste of my self-nature. The mind has come home. If I really wanted it and it really satisfied a desire, that's myself. That's all that happens. Mind goes out, that bites. Mind comes home. So we have to notice this point of pleasure. It's not in the object. It's the mind momentarily free from its vikshepa shakti. Let's start right up again. And for many of us, there's a low level of vikshepa shakti going on all the time. Even when I satisfy a desire, it doesn't totally make it go away. Then Shankar would say you're like a person at a banquet with a thorn in your throat. Can't even enjoy it. The thing happens. We have to prove to our own mind that the things of the world are not bad. They're just empty. They're void. Any thoughts on this? So I want to nuance this rather than distaste for worldly objects, just neutrality and easy access to the bliss of the sun. I like the way it's framed in Gita. When a person casts off all the desires of the mind and is satisfied in the self by the self, then they're said to be a person of steady wisdom. Then do as you will. Any thoughts on this? All right, we'll quit here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Namaha.